What happens when one of the most respected voices in television gets ambushed on a talk show that was supposed to celebrate her legacy? In just 34 seconds, a single dismissive comment would trigger a walkout that nobody saw coming. Oprah Winfrey arrived at the studio that day expecting a thoughtful conversation. She had been invited to discuss her decades of groundbreaking work, her philanthropic efforts, and the evolution of daytime television. What she got instead was something entirely different. Jennifer Hudson sat across from her, and from the very first question, something felt off. The energy was strange, almost competitive, where there should have been warmth and mutual respect between two powerful women in entertainment. There was tension. "So, Oprah," Jennifer began, leaning back in her chair with a smirk that seemed just a little too confident. "Let's talk about your show. I mean, it was good for its time, right? But don't you think the format is kind of outdated now?" The audience went quiet. You could feel the shift in the room. This wasn't the setup for a playful joke. This was a jab. Oprah paused, her expression measured. She had handled difficult interviews before, had faced criticism and controversy with grace. But this was different. This was disrespect disguised as a question. "Outdated?" Oprah repeated, her voice calm, but with an edge. "I think creating a platform that gave voice to people who had never been heard before, that tackled issues nobody else would touch. That's timeless, not outdated." Jennifer laughed, but it wasn't a genuine laugh. It was dismissive, almost mocking. Sure," she said, waving her hand as if brushing away Oprah's words. "But I mean, we do things differently now. We're more real, more raw. Your show was very, polished. Safe. Safe." The word hung in the air like an insult. Oprah's jaw tightened, just slightly. Anyone who knew her could see it. She was holding back, trying to give Jennifer the benefit of the doubt, trying to assume this was just nerves or misguided attempts at being edgy. "I don't think there's anything safe about sitting down with people who've survived abuse, who've overcome addiction, who've lost everything, and found the courage to rebuild," Oprah said, her voice steady but firm. "That's not safe. That's necessary." The audience began to applaud, but Jennifer cut them off, speaking over the clapping. Okay, but let's be honest," Jennifer continued, and now there was no mistaking the attitude in her voice. "A lot of people say you were just really good at making yourself the center of every story. Like, even when you had guests on, it somehow always came back to you and your experiences." The audacity of the statement landed like a slap. The audience gasped. Even the crew members looked uncomfortable, exchanging glances, unsure if they should intervene. Oprah sat perfectly still. Her hands were folded in her lap, her posture unchanged, but her eyes showed everything. This had crossed a line. "Jennifer," Oprah said, and her voice was quieter now, more deliberate. "I shared my experiences to create connection, to show people they weren't alone. That's what empathy looks like." Right, Jennifer said, nodding but not really listening. "But some people just thought it was narcissistic, Like, we get it. You had a hard childhood. But did you have to bring it up in every single interview?" The room went completely silent. Not a cough, not a shuffle, nothing. What Jennifer had just said wasn't critique. It was cruelty. Oprah took a slow, deep breath. She looked down for a moment, and when she looked back up, something had changed. The patience was gone. The grace she had been extending was withdrawn. "You know what, Jennifer?" Oprah said, her voice calm but absolute. "I came here today as a courtesy. I came here to support you, to have a real conversation. But I will not sit here and let you mock the pain I've shared, the pain millions of people connected with, just so you can try to make yourself look edgy or relevant." Jennifer's smirk faltered. She clearly hadn't expected Oprah to push back this hard. "Oh, come on, Oprah, don't be so sensitive," Jennifer said, trying to laugh it off. "I'm just asking the tough questions. Isn't that what good interviewers do? Tough questions come from curiosity and respect, Oprah replied. What you're doing is performing, and you're using me as your prop. The audience was frozen. Some people looked shocked. Others looked like they wanted to cheer, but didn't dare. Jennifer shifted in her seat, clearly rattled, but trying to maintain control. I think you're overreacting, Jennifer said, and there it was, the final straw. The dismissal. The gaslighting. Telling Oprah Winfrey, a woman who had navigated decades of media with unmatched wisdom, that she was overreacting. Oprah stood up. Not quickly, not frantically. She stood up with the kind of calm, deliberate energy that comes from knowing exactly who you are and what you will and will not tolerate. I'm done here, Oprah said simply. Jennifer's eyes went wide. Wait, what? Oprah, sit down. We're in the middle of the interview. No, Oprah said, already unhooking her microphone. We're not. You might be in the middle of whatever this is, but I'm not participating anymore. You can't just leave, Jennifer said, and now there was panic in her voice. The smugness was gone, replaced by the dawning realization that this was actually happening. I absolutely can, Oprah replied, and I am. Jennifer stood up too, trying to salvage the situation. Oprah, come on, I was just trying to have a fun, spirited conversation. You know how this works. Oprah turned to face her directly, and when she spoke, her words were clear and final. What I know is how respect works, and this isn't it. She handed her microphone to a stunned production assistant and began walking toward the exit. Oprah, please, Jennifer called out, following a few steps behind her. Don't do this. Don't make this a thing. Oprah stopped and turned around one last time. I'm not making this anything, Jennifer. You did that all on your own. I hope someday you understand the difference between being provocative and being cruel, between challenging someone and diminishing them. And with that, she walked off the stage. The audience sat in absolute shock. Nobody knew what to do. Should they applaud? Should they stay silent? The cameras kept rolling, capturing every moment of Jennifer standing there alone, her face a mixture of disbelief and creeping humiliation. Jennifer turned to the audience, trying desperately to regain control. Well, I guess Oprah really can't handle the heat anymore. But nobody laughed. Nobody clapped. The audience just stared at her, and in their eyes, you could see it. They knew who was wrong here. They knew who had pushed too far. One of the producers rushed onto the stage, whispering urgently in Jennifer's ear. Jennifer nodded stiffly, clearly being told to wrap it up, to cut to commercial, to end this disaster before it got worse. We're going to take a quick break, Jennifer announced, her voice shaky now, the confidence completely drained. But backstage, the real chaos was unfolding. Oprah's team was livid. They had warned the producers that Oprah expected a respectful conversation, and instead, she had been subjected to what felt like a calculated hit job. She ambushed her, one of Oprah's people said to a producer. You told us this would be a celebration, not an interrogation. The producer stammered, trying to explain, but there was no explanation good enough. Oprah had been disrespected, and everyone knew it. In her dressing room, Oprah sat quietly, processing what had just happened. She wasn't angry in the explosive sense. She was disappointed. Disappointed that another woman in the industry, someone she had supported and cheered for, had chosen to tear her down instead of build alongside her. One of her close friends knocked gently and came in. You okay? The friend asked. Oprah nodded slowly. I'm fine. I don't understand why she thought that was acceptable. Maybe she was trying to prove something, the friend offered. Maybe she felt like she needed to go hard to seem legitimate. At my expense? Oprah asked. That's not strength. That's insecurity. And that was the truth of it. What had happened in that studio wasn't a battle between equals. It was a desperate attempt by someone trying to elevate themselves by standing on someone else's shoulders. Back on set, Jennifer was trying to regroup. During the commercial break, she had been given notes, told to shift the tone, to move on to safer topics. But the damage was done. The show's energy was gone. The audience was uncomfortable. And Oprah, the biggest guest Jennifer Hudson's show had ever landed, was gone. When they came back from commercial, Jennifer tried to play it off. "Well, that was unexpected," she said with a forced laugh. "But you know, that's live television for you." Except it wasn't live. It was taped. And that made it worse, because it meant the producers could have stopped it, could have intervened, and they didn't. Jennifer attempted to continue with her planned segments, bringing out other guests, doing musical performances, but none of it mattered. The only thing anyone would remember from that taping was Oprah walking off. The audience members, when they left the studio that day, immediately started talking. Some posted on social media. Others called friends and family. The word spread quickly. Oprah Winfrey had walked off Jennifer Hudson's show after being disrespected. In the dressing room, Oprah gathered her things. She wasn't rushing, wasn't fleeing. She was simply leaving with the same dignity she had maintained her entire career. Her team asked if she wanted to make a statement, to get ahead of the story, to control the narrative. "No," Oprah said simply. "What happened in there speaks for itself. People will see it and make their own judgments." And she was right, because what happened in that studio wasn't complicated. It was simple. One woman had tried to diminish another, and instead of tolerating it, instead of smiling through it for the sake of appearances, Oprah had stood up and walked away. As her car pulled away from the studio, Oprah looked out the window, thinking about the state of media, the pressure young hosts feel to be controversial, to create viral moments at any cost. She understood the pressure. She had felt it too, decades ago when she was building her own show. But she had made a different choice. She had chosen to lift people up, to create space for honest conversation, to use her platform for connection rather than confrontation. What Jennifer had done today was the opposite. She had used her platform to attack, to mock, to try to score points with an audience by tearing down someone who had paved the way for her. And the saddest part, it didn't work. The audience hadn't rallied behind Jennifer. They had been horrified. They had seen exactly what it was, a desperate grab for relevance at the expense of someone who had earned her place through years of hard work and authenticity. Back at the studio, Jennifer sat in her own dressing room, finally alone. The producers had left. The audience was gone. It was just her and the crushing realization of what she had done. She had wanted to make a statement, to show that she could go toe-to-toe with a legend. But instead, she had shown her own immaturity, her own inability to recognize when she was out of her depth. Someone knocked on her door. It was one of the senior producers. "We need to talk about how we're going to handle this," the producer said. Jennifer nodded, but she wasn't really listening. She was replaying the interview in her head, seeing now, too late, all the moments where she could have chosen differently, where she could have been gracious instead of combative, where she could have honored Oprah instead of trying to one-up her. The question she would ask herself later, the question that would keep her up at night, was simple. Why? Why had she done it? What had she been trying to prove? But in that moment, sitting in her dressing room with the weight of her mistake settling over her, there were no good answers, only regret. Meanwhile, Oprah was already moving on. She had other commitments, other projects, other conversations to have with people who valued respectful dialogue. This would be a blip, a strange footnote in her vast career. Nothing more. For Jennifer, though, this would be something else entirely. This would be a lesson, a hard, public, humbling lesson about the difference between confidence and arrogance, between challenging someone and disrespecting them. The footage of the interview would eventually reach the public. People would watch it, dissect it, debate it, but the conclusion would be nearly unanimous. Oprah had been the bigger person. Oprah had drawn a line and stood by it. Oprah had reminded everyone watching what dignity looks like. And Jennifer? Jennifer would have to figure out how to rebuild from here, how to learn from this, how to become the kind of interviewer who elevates rather than diminishes. The studio lights were turned off. The set was cleared. The audience was long gone. But the impact of what had happened would echo far beyond that room, far beyond that day. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away. Sometimes refusing to participate in your own diminishment is the strongest statement you can make. And Oprah Winfrey, after decades in the spotlight, knew that better than anyone. She had spent her career showing people that their voices mattered, that their stories deserved to be heard with compassion and respect. And when she was denied that same courtesy, she didn't argue. She didn't fight. She simply stood up, maintained her composure, and left. It was a masterclass in self-respect, a reminder that you teach people how to treat you. And if someone crosses the line, you don't have to smile and bear it. You can stand up. You can speak your truth, and you can walk away with your head held high. That's exactly what Oprah did. And in doing so, she gave everyone watching permission to do the same in their own lives, to recognize when they're being disrespected, to trust their own judgment, to refuse to participate in situations that diminish their worth. The interview that was supposed to be a celebration turned into something else, a moment of truth, a line in the sand, a choice between tolerating disrespect and demanding better. Oprah chose better. And that choice, that single decision to stand up and walk away, said more than any perfectly crafted response ever could. It said, I know my worth. I won't defend it to you. I'll simply remove myself from any space that doesn't honor it. And that, more than anything else that happened that day, was the real lesson. The one that transcended celebrity and television and viral moments. The universal truth that sometimes the most powerful word you can say is no. And sometimes the most powerful action you can take is walking away.